there is nothing about type 1 that can keep you from achieving everything that you want to in life. Whether that's being a musician, an athlete, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever amazing thing you have aspirations for, being a type 1 diabetic cannot stop you unless you allow it to.
Right.
Welcome to Healthy Living, Wellness and Prevention, Medical Innovation, the informed side of care. Welcome to Baptist Health Talk.
Welcome to a special edition of Baptist Health Talk. I'm Mike Cugno. Today we have a special episode from the sidelines, so to speak, at the Baptist Health Training Complex with special guest Blake Ferguson, long snapper for the Miami Dolphins. Many watching him on the field likely know he lives with type 1 diabetes, inspiring his fans on the field and working hard off the field, raising funds and awareness for the cause. Type 1 diabetes is a lifelong condition that more than 8 million people worldwide have, and is expected to grow between 13 to 17 million by 2040. Baptist Health is the official medical team of the Miami Dolphins. Many of Baptist Health's orthopedic physicians treat the players on the field, but today we are chatting off the field with endocrinologist Dr. Alejandro. Thank you both so much for being here. I know you both are busy. You're a doctor and you're a football player, so we're glad you could both make time for this. Dr. Alejandro, let's start with you. For those who may not know, they hear the term diabetes and they think type 1 or type 2, but what are the differences between those?
Right. So when we talk about patients with type 1 diabetes, they're insulin deficient. They don't make enough insulin, right?
Okay.
It's an autoimmune condition. You make antibodies that attack the islet cells, which are the cells within the pancreas that make insulin. So those patients don't make any insulin. Type 2 diabetics are a little bit different. They make insulin, but their body's resistant to the action of the insulin, right? We want to pull that glucose from the blood into the cells, right? Yeah. Glucose is the fuel for the cells. And when you have resistance, that glucose stays in the blood and it ends up having hyperglycemia. And that's the main difference. Type 1, you don't make enough. Type 2, you have resistance. Mm-hmm. And the numbers are different. We have 27 million people in the United States with type 2 diabetes. 1 in 3 have prediabetes. So, we're talking today about type 1, but also type 2 is very prevalent. And one day we'll talk about that too. But today we're going to focus on type 1.
All right. And Blake, can you walk us through your journey a little bit? Because you found out you had diabetes at the age of 13. What was that process like? What were those moments like?
Yeah, it was kind of scary. Mm-hmm. When I was diagnosed, I was halfway through my 8th grade year. I was 13 and I had lost weight, which is abnormal as a 13-year-old boy playing football. I was drinking water all the time. I was thirsty all the time, which is one of the key symptoms of high blood sugar. And consequently, then I was waking up in the middle of the night all the time, having to go use the restroom. Yeah. And so there came a point where my mom was like, "We've got to get you to the doctor. We got to see what's going on." And so we went to my family practice doctor, ran some blood tests. My blood sugar at the time was 710, which is 7 times what your blood sugar is supposed to be.
Wow.
A normal reading is right at 100. And so went back the next day to do a fasting test. It was still like 400 and something. And so then I was referred to our children's hospital there in Atlanta where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And I was in the hospital for about a week, learning about this new disease that I had, getting my blood sugar under control, and just understanding what life was going to be like from there on out. So it's crazy to think about now, like 14 years later, that I'm, have been able to experience so much since then. Yeah. Because at the time it was very daunting, and I didn't know what the future meant for me. I didn't know hardly anything about the disease. Mm-hmm. I had one friend growing up that had it, but I didn't know, what diabetes meant, or that there were 2 different types. And so, it's definitely been a learning process over the years. But now I'm lucky to be in a position where I can impact those who are coming after me, who are being diagnosed and are scared and have goals and aspirations for themselves.
I think you said 2 key words there, learning and scared. So when you learned in that moment, when someone tells you have diabetes as a teenager, I mean, what's kind of going through your head right there?
Yeah, I think when I look back at it, I feel very lucky that I was on the older side of what you would see as most type 1 diabetes diagnoses, and our doctor here can probably give a little bit better data on that, but it's called juvenile diabetes for a reason, and most people who are diagnosed are usually under the age of 10, I believe.
That's correct.
And
yes.
so for me being 13, I was lucky to be fairly independent with it from the jump. Like I knew I was taught how to count carbs. I was taught how to use, at the time I was drawing insulin out of a vial and giving myself shots, which now we're so lucky that there have been so many technological advancements to make it so much easier on us. But a lot of kids who are being diagnosed are, under the age of 3, they can't communicate how they're feeling to their parents. Their parents are their primary caretaker, and it makes life very, very difficult. And so I do feel lucky that I was a little bit on the older side. I was a little bit, more aware of sort of how I was feeling. I could, kind of lean on my mom to help, but I really just, tried to take as much control of it myself as I could, knowing that at some point I would have to do it on my own anyway.
Doctor, Blake kind of mentioned, and probably checked off a lot of boxes in terms of the symptoms and what he was experiencing. What are some of the signs that if, parents notice in their kids or even as adults that could point you in the direction, hey, I should get checked out?
Well, Blake mentioned the weight loss. Unexplained weight loss is a big one, right? It's not 10 pounds. It's a significant amount of weight that's clearly unintentional. Polyuria, waking up frequently to urinate at night, nocturia. It's another thing, right? When we talk about diabetes, it's the 3 Ps: polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, right? You pee too much, you drink too much, and then you eat too much, right? But even though you're eating, you're losing weight, right? It's a catabolic state. So your body's burning all these calories and you become very thin, okay? If you look at the pictures of children before insulin was developed, they were very thin. They were all bony. You can see their bones. We don't see that now, thankfully, since we have insulin and all these new insulin delivery devices, which you mentioned. But that's the biggest thing. You're going to urinate a lot. You're going to be losing weight. You can have blurry vision. The sugar's so high that it's kind of like you're putting someone else's glasses on. So blurry vision is another thing. But the weight loss, I think the weight loss is huge. You noticed it.
Yeah.
Your family noticed it.
And it's interesting, because I was in 8th grade at the time, which is right as you're going through puberty. You're starting to, develop muscle mass.
Your body's changing.
Your body's changing a lot. And after I was diagnosed, started taking insulin, I gained like 50 or 60 pounds in the next year of just muscle. I was getting bigger, getting stronger. And I was like the cells were finally getting the nutrients in the food that I was eating, my body was starting to actually be able to grow and develop because of that. And so it's crazy, looking at those old pictures of before they ever had insulin, and thankfully we do now.
Correct.
So as a professional athlete, I mean, you guys are finely tuned. I mean, you guys got to watch pretty much everything you eat, whether it's off season, in season, practice. So how do you manage it with type 1 diabetes? Are there things you do in the off season that might be different than you do during the season?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest thing that I do is just creating a good routine. I eat pretty much the same thing for breakfast, the same thing for lunch, and then dinner changes up a little bit. But, for me, off season, in season, off days, I try to keep a pretty strict routine, because I know how my body will respond to certain foods that I put in my body. And even though I wear an insulin pump and take insulin, one certain type of food may have sugar in it, that's a simple sugar that would spike my blood sugar, before it comes back down. Whereas there may be some other foods that are more complex carbs that are going to be a little bit slower, add a little bit of protein in there, and sort of lighten the spike in your blood sugar, which long term your body will thank you for. And so over the years of doing this and being a diabetic and now being a professional athlete who has diabetes, I think I don't really have to even think about it because I've always had to be so aware of what's going in my body.
14 years of routine.
Exactly. Yeah. I've always had to be so aware of what's going in my body that, when you talk about being a professional athlete, it's like I was already, pretty structured and pretty routine oriented and, making sure that I was counting the carbs that I was eating, because otherwise, like your life is on the line. You know, it's not just being able to play a sport professionally or high performance. This is like life and death situations.
Yeah.
So this is it goes far beyond just the performance aspect for me.
Wow, that's not kind of intense. That is intense. Although you kind of got into a rhythm of it. I would say it gets easier, and it's more, the longer you do it, just like anything, you get more comfortable at it. I can look at a plate of food and be like, oh yeah, that's 65 carbs, and not even bat an eye at it. But when you're first starting out, that's what I was talking about earlier. It's daunting. Like you feel like you've got so much to learn, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more second nature it is. You're like one of those apps that people like trying to get big and stuff, and I try to get
you're just like the MyFitnessPal app.
You're just a walking app right now. That's pretty interesting. Now, what are some of the he's uncommon, obviously. He's a professional football player, but what are some of the common things people who are finding out that they live with type 1 diabetes can do to kind of balance out their diet?
Right. So, I mean, the first thing is, and it's hypoglycemia is what we want to try to avoid. Right? So that's clear. And you can't eliminate carbs from your life. We need carbs. Our body needs carbs. But you have to learn how to count the carbs. And there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. I mean, you mentioned, a simple carbohydrate. That's a slice of white toast, right? If you do the wheat, it's still maybe 2 grams less of carbs, but it's a complex carbohydrate. Right. So you're not going to get that spike in sugar after you, which is what you mentioned. It is not easy. I mean, when you first start off, it's always a slice of bread is 15. And then you try to, I ate a sandwich, so I got 30. But it becomes easier with time. And as Blake mentioned, it becomes a routine. Yeah. But that's the hardest part, is trying to figure out your meal plan. But what I always tell the patients is this is a misconception that you can't eat carbs. Yeah. You can eat carbs. Right. We just have to account for the carbs because we're dosing your insulin based on the amount of carbs you're going to ingest. But it's doable, and you get a hang of it real quick. And we have technology now. We have apps. We have so many things that help us count carbs now, which we didn't have before.
Are your younger patients just really good at math now? They're just doing it on the fly all the
time? You'll be surprised. They pick it up real quick. Yeah. Their parents pick it up quick. Yeah. So having a support system or someone who's with you that can help you, it really helps. Because as we age, as we grow, different stages of our lives, we do stupid things, right? So sometimes we need someone to bring us back home. Yeah. But let me tell you, those kids, it's impressive. Yeah. They really do take ownership of their diabetes. They know they can live normal lives. You can be a professional athlete, but you got to hit it hard, And once they get a hang of it and they see their sugars are better, those are the ones that tend to do very well. Yeah. Very well, yeah.
You're like a coach out there, not just a doctor.
Yeah, that's what I do,
Dr. Alejandro mentioned sandwiches, so let's talk a little bit about food. So what are some of your favorite snacks, healthy foods that you like to eat that help kind of mitigate everything?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the main things that I like to sort of keep on me, both when I'm at work and when I'm at home, when I'm driving around in the truck, I keep sports drinks in the general vicinity all the time. Right. I know it's, going to help me get out of a low blood sugar relatively quick because it's another one of those simple carbs that can help bring you up pretty quickly. And then I also like eating just like peanut butter crackers. That's got a little bit of protein and fat in it to, again, sort of slow that spike. So being able to get out of the low blood sugar, but then you sort of slow it down with the protein and the fat in there as well. So those are my like go-tos. I try not to eat a ton of like really sugary foods just in general. So that's why I go for like a sports drink, because I know that that's like a hydrating. It's got electrolytes. It's got other things that are beneficial to me as an athlete more so than, other like gummies or any kind of candy or whatever that I really want to avoid as an athlete. But yeah, so
I was going to say you weren't lying. He's not lying about the sports drink, because when we walked in here, you had a water and a sport.
Yep. I always keep one in my backpack in the truck, just making sure there's always one around.
Yeah.
So.
How does what you eat play a role for someone who has type 1 diabetes?
Well, we've been going over this over and over today. It's what you eat is the type of carbohydrate that you eat, right? When you ingest simple carbohydrates, candies and things like that, or soft drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you're going to get a rapid spike, okay? And cells don't like that, okay? Where you get into trouble is up and down. That's what causes the microvascular complications, right? The eye disease, the renal problems, the neuropathy. So you want to balance your meal. And I think Blake's a great example. I mean, those peanut butter crackers, if you think about it, it just makes sense, right? You got protein, you got a little bit of fat, you have your carbs, it's the perfect snack, right? But you can't just go munching on the crackers alone because you're going to run into trouble, your sugar is just going to fly.
Right.
So it's just moderation and mixing your meals is very important.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit of football because, Blake, obviously you're an inspiration to go through this, but also have the drive to end up here in the NFL, Miami Dolphins. How did you treat this? Did you treat it as like, oh, this is just my obstacle or my hurdle that I have to overcome? Were you ever kind of, dissuaded from trying to become a professional athlete once you found out?
Yeah, I think what's funny about this whole sort of story for me is so I talked earlier about going from being tested that following morning, was like 400 and something, being referred to the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. As we were on our way to the hospital, my mom looks over and she loves to tell the story, but I was on my phone Googling professional athletes with type 1 diabetes because I wanted to know that the dreams and the aspirations that I had since I was a little boy, I could still achieve, even despite this disease. And so for me, when I saw a long list of people with type 1 diabetes in all different kinds of sports being successful and having a lot of accolades and doing great things, for me, there was never any other choice, any other option. Like I had to be the next one on that list. And I was very fortunate. My uncle went to church with a guy who played in the New York Yankees organization with type 1 diabetes. And he reached out to me, gave me a word of encouragement and just said, hey, there is nothing about type 1 that can keep you from achieving everything that you want to in life. Whether that's being a musician, an athlete, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever amazing thing you have aspirations for, being a type 1 diabetic cannot stop you unless you allow it to.
Right.
And so that's the message that I try to pass along to young people that I speak to all the time. Social media, people will hit me up, parents who are wanting just an encouragement to their kid or camps or different events. That's what I try to pass along to them because I was fortunate enough for that message to be passed along to me, and I want to pay it forward.
I'm curious, in the NFL, are you aware of who else has it? Like when you see someone at a game, you go, hey man, keep up the good work.
Yeah, there are several of us around the league who do, and we kind of keep up with each other. And it's cool because it's like our own little community of people who have been able to fight through not only the adversity of playing sports at a high level, but doing it despite having this disease that makes life just a little bit more difficult. Right. You know what I mean? And so it is always cool to kind of catch up with those guys, see them doing great things on the field. And, we've got our own little brotherhood.
Little club.
Yeah.
That's cool. Blake talked about it, how basically I think being an athlete may have helped you deal with this because, you try to stick to workout plans and schedules and everything.
And being competitive.
Right. And not everyone, wants to be a football player or, a basketball player. What are some of the major challenges that some of your patients find when dealing with type 1 diabetes?
Well, in the beginning, you mentioned you were using syringes and needles. So that's difficult, especially for younger patients. Yeah. Thankfully, things have changed, and now we have pen devices where you just twist and you just inject. The sensors, there's these continuous glucose monitors that we wear, and they have been game-changing. Having to prick your fingers 5, 6, 7 times a day is a lot for a child, and it's a lot for an adult, right? But once you have a sensor that has automated alarms, right? When you're dropping, it beeps. When you're high, it beeps. It alerts you. It alerts your family members. That technology has been huge. And then moving forward to insulin pumps. We have all these automated insulin delivery systems.
Yeah.
Some are even auto, where it gives you more when you need more and it shuts off when you're going low. That's the future. Can everyone get it? No, that's something we need to work on, right? We got to make sure everyone who has type 1 has access to that type of technology. But all those things are important for 2 reasons. One, you avoid lows, hypoglycemia. Yeah. And 2, you avoid DKA. DKA can be fatal, right? And that's what we as clinicians, that's our biggest fear, that we're going to have a child go into DKA. We don't want that. But the other fear is you don't want a child having hypoglycemia and nobody knowing.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest challenges, right? But I don't mean to scare people. You've had physicians tell you all the time, but you got to know the bad, right? So you avoid it, right? So these are the 2 things we want to avoid. What can we do to avoid it? We have diet, we have technology, we have support, we have family, friends, we got the whole medical community out there trying to help you guys, right? Because you know, right. I'm in awe right now, man. This guy's good, man. He's good.
I know. We've heard so much of his story. What's some of the advice maybe you give young athletes when you see them who are worried that is this going to affect my hopes and dreams?
No, you tell me one. It will not. This will not affect your hopes. You hit it hard. You keep on plowing through, and then our job is to guide them. Now, granted, yes, there are certain steps we need to take, right? The training staff needs to be made aware you're type 1. They need to have sugar, right? You have your sports drinks. We got to make sure we have the glucagon in the bag in case things go real south real fast. Glucagon brings them right back, right? So there's steps that we have to take to protect the athlete, but there is no reason that athlete cannot achieve his or her dream.
You mentioned the DMs. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to mention one thing that you mentioned that was super important, and that's having a group of people around you who are supporting you. And when I talked earlier about being super independent about it from the jump, that's not to say that I did not have anybody else helping me. I had a ton of people who were looking out for me, trainers, coaches, friends, my parents, my fiance right now has my blood sugar on her phone all the time and is constantly checking in to make sure that I'm good. Like, and if I have a low blood sugar from 5 states away, she can text me and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'll text her back.
That's why she's your fiance.
Exactly. But that would be my biggest encouragement to parents, friends out there who are seeing this footage. Be the support system for those kids, for those people who are wanting to feel like they're not doing this alone. Because, though you can be independent with it, it takes a village of people to really get across the finish line and get to playing professional sports or being amazing at whatever you do.
Right. This is why you're a pro. I was going to ask what advice you would give people.
That would be it.
You jumped in. I didn't have to do anything. You're making my job super simple today. I mean, both of you guys. I've certainly learned a lot from this talk today. So this is really interesting. It's funny because like we see each other in the locker room covering you, and I know you like to do a lot of things in the community. I knew your story about type 1 diabetes, but I didn't just know the backstory. So it is interesting to learn how much you guys deal with this and how it is like an ever evolving thing for not only yourself but doctors as well. So thank you guys so much. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your insight with our audience. To those watching, be sure to hit that subscribe button on our channel to keep up with the latest health and wellness information and tips from our experts. Thank you so much for watching.
Find additional valuable health and wellness information on our resource blog at baptisthealth.net/news. And be sure to interact with us on our social media channels for live and upcoming events. Baptist Health Talk is brought to you by Baptist Health, the warmer side of care.